What is up, and welcome back to the Unfiltered Trainer podcast. I am your host, Gina, aka Gina Marie Fit. And if you know me, you know that I cannot sit down to save my life. So I've just been behind the scenes doing the absolute most, working on my organization called Sweating Together for a Cause. I had a couple organizations reach out to me, one in particular, and they had asked about could I help with individual needs as well? And I said, absolutely. That is the whole point, is finding ways to give back to a community that has given me so much in the last 3 years of living here. And so Sweating Together for a Cause not only will include special events, highlighting community trainers and leaders who are doing the absolute most, but it will also include ways to partner with other charity organizations, whether that's helping individual needs or that is setting up opportunities to volunteer. That is one thing that is significantly lacking in the city with these organizations, is finding enough volunteers to get everything done. And so we'll be doing more of that in the coming months. I'm also working on turning the annual event into a biannual event. I had a really big meeting and I'm just waiting to hear from the higher ups of that organization to make sure everything aligns and we can set up a time to make that go live. So just want to say thank you, because one thing that's incredible about social media and having people who are involved and engaged with your following is that is how you can make such an impact. And that's really the whole point of being on social media, in my opinion. It's not for the likes or the comments. It's because when done right, can be an incredible tool to help those in need. And that's where I see my social media going, and why I want to continue growing my audience is just to make sure that I can provide connections that really make a difference and spotlight people who are doing the most. And I feel like that's the most beautiful thing. It should be community over competition, and that necessarily isn't always the case. And so I want to be somebody that can bridge those gaps and create that as the standard, especially in the fitness community here in Tampa, because we do have such a reach and we can make such an impact. And so you'll be seeing more about that. For the purposes of the podcast, still will be dropping episodes every Tuesday. So if you haven't yet, please make sure you go and subscribe to this podcast. You can now find it on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube Studios. And as always, leave that 5-star review and comment. That is what helps podcasters the most. I'm going to start spotlighting a comment a month to do the giveaway. So February's giveaway, I'll be pulling at the end of next week. So continue to let me know when you save one of those reviews to each podcast, and then I can access it and give a little spotlight and shout out. All right, y'all, let's get into today's episode. This one's going to feel like a therapy session, honestly, because today we're going to talk about grieving the loss of a friendship. I know this is something I've been dealing with a lot, honestly, is I have transitioned in a lot of different aspects in my life. And I feel like as life goes on, you have friends for a season, for a reason, and some friends are with you for a lifetime. But sadly, not everybody is meant to come along for the ride. That doesn't mean that every friendship ends in a messy, complicated situation. Sometimes people just grow apart, and that's completely normal and healthy. When you lose a friend, it's easy to get caught up in the pain of the loss. It can mean a significant period of time of mourning. You know, you're mourning the happy times, all of the memories, but that can be unhealthy for your mental well-being. We have to learn that letting ourselves feel the impact of the loss of that friend is admirable. It's obviously advisable, but it shouldn't be something that you fixate on and cannot seem to progress and let go of. And when friendships end, I feel like this is a very normal thing in our lives. We have to think about the reason it started in the first place. Friendships come from common interests, whether that's because of location, similar stages of life, or common goals. The foundation is established. But when life happens, whether that's a move, a change in status, kids, divorce, friendships can take a backseat. And depending on the level of the bond, there is a greater likelihood that that friendship actually could continue. But if the bond doesn't exist and that common denominator of that friendship doesn't exist, then it will dissolve. We have to remember that people are multi-layered. We're dynamic. We grow and we change. And if the friendship cannot grow with the change, it's unlikely it's going to last. So that kind of sets the premise for how to know when it's time to let go. Every relationship has highs and lows, but when the lows remain consistent, then it's time to sever ties. If it's a good friend that starts to slip away and you don't want to lose them, you have to ask yourself, how can I be a better friend? Why are things growing apart? And encourage honest communication. You may not be ready to let go, but they may be ready to let go. And that is one of those things that you may have to learn to accept and work through on your own, because relationships and friendships cannot be one-sided. Something that's really important is learning to recognize when a friendship is toxic. In a toxic relationship, one person will often do more of the taking than another one who's doing more of the giving. You have to pay attention to how you feel the next time you're around this person, and then how you feel after spending time with them. Signs that you have a toxic friendship are that your friend doesn't show any interest in your life. It's always about them, their needs, their issues. There's no reciprocal energy and concern about your well-being or what's going on in your life. They often lie, manipulate, and try to control you. They don't support or show up for you. They're unreliable. You might feel neglected or judged by them, and you can feel emotionally drained after being with them. And if you are like, whoa, red flag, that is me, then this is going to be the podcast for you today. Last year, I dealt with this a lot, and I am still dealing with this because it is really difficult having good quality friends in Tampa. In my opinion, it's easy to make friends. But when people always say, oh, you have so many friends, I have transitioned that statement to say, no, I have a lot of acquaintances. I have like a handful of good friends in Tampa. Something I have really been struggling with, and it's kind of why I call today like a therapy session, because I am actively working through this as we're having this conversation together, is I am always the planner. I am somebody that always puts together events, always includes people and things. I am always finding a way to get people involved. And whether I have a game night or a pool day, everybody knows everybody's always welcome. You're welcome to bring a friend. Like, that is what I love about myself and hate about myself, honestly, is because I am naturally an inclusive person, changing schools, going through a lot as a child, having a less than desirable experience initially in college before I transferred. I know what it's like to be on the outside. I know what it's like to struggle making friends, and I know what it's like to be judged. When I came to Tampa, I was warned that people were going to be different, that I may struggle here because I am just a genuine, kind-hearted person, and I truly do have the best intentions. The outcomes are not always desirable, but I do try to be a good person, and I try to include people, and genuinely, when somebody has something going on, support them. What I am struggling to deal with is that I don't have a lot of people that reciprocate that. Now, when I host an event, everybody comes. Everybody comes. Everybody came to my birthday. But it's the fact that if I don't initiate or include people or plan something, I'm never included. And that is really hard for me because there are only a few people that go out of their way to include me in things. And I love and appreciate those people so much. But it's really hard for me that the people that are always attending events or coming to things I do don't reciprocate and include me in what they do. And you can take it personal. I know I've felt this very personally that, what is it about me? Why don't people want me around, or why don't people include me in things when they come to things that I do? And sometimes it's not even a personal thing. They're genuinely not thinking about you because they're involved in whatever's going on in their life. And as much as a busy person like myself can understand that there are weeks that I don't talk to anybody unless it's work related because the week is just so busy. But it's not a good feeling if people that are supposed to be your quote unquote friends don't even think about you enough to include you in something. And it's something that I am personally like working through myself. I know that last year I had one group of friends and that looks totally different this year. I've also had two of my closest friends move away. One most recently, and now somebody I love very much is going to be moving at the end of March. And they're the best kind of people, honestly, because they're good, kind-hearted people. They're supportive. They check in on you. Like all three of these people have, since my accident, been actively involved, genuinely care about my well-being and me as a person. And they're not just situational people that want to come because it's a party and it's a good time. They're genuinely invested in my life and I'm invested in their life. And I'm learning that because of this transition I'm going through, my life looks a lot different now. And I used to have a lot more to do, and I don't now. And sometimes I think for me, that's probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because I stressed out a lot last year with friendships. I honestly had a significant amount of anxiety because I didn't know who was the person talking about me, or if I wasn't included in something, like, was it intentional? It was just a very uncomfortable environment because I wasn't necessarily able to trust everybody that was in my circle at the time. And I feel like the one thing that has happened because of this accident is when you go through something in life, you'll know who your true friends are because they will rise to the occasion. When you can't be the fun one hosting people or going out, it's your good, true friends that show up to your house, will have a game night with you, or will just make dinner or go out to dinner knowing that you really can't go out. It's not something that was encouraged for me to be in loud social environments. And I still have trouble being around a lot of people. I'm overly stimulated. Conversations are really hard and I lose my train of thought often. The louder, more stimulating the environment is, the harder I have a time being there, which is just, honestly awkward and makes me not want to socialize. But I know that the doctors have warned me about the mental health issues when having a traumatic brain injury and the reality of being antisocial because you don't like that you're different and you don't like letting people see you be different. And so it's definitely one of these things that I'm like, okay, Gina, is it just you? Are you are you just in your feels because you know that you're not yourself? Or, is it time to sever ties with certain people? And so I think I'm in that phase of life where I'm in hustle mode. I'm in growth mode. I am just trying to be a better person and prepare for my new role. In a month, my life is going to be inundated with teaching classes again and hosting events. And I know in a month, I'm not going to be able to breathe. And that's the kind of life I like. I like being on the go. I like routine and I like a set schedule. And so I feel like this is my time to heal and to process everything that has happened and I'm going through. And I feel like that's what this kind of grief of loss of friendships looks like. And if you've never been through this, or maybe you're experiencing this too, that process can look very much like if a breakup. Because when you lose a friend, you can have physical symptoms that include insomnia, GI issues, chest tightness. There are many nights last year that I could not sleep because I was going through situations or circumstances or interactions at dinners and unfavorable conversations I was having, or things were being told to me. And something that I really don't know how to handle is how fake people are in Tampa. And I'm sure this happens in a lot of big cities, but there's so much drama for such a small area. And I hear or see people saying things about people and talking poorly about them. And then you see them posting on Instagram. And it's the most awkward thing because you're just kind of moving your eyes back and forth like, wait, didn't that person just say XYZ? So why are they hanging out with him? And sometimes I think it's sad, but I think it's out of desperation, because when you start burning bridges with people and people really start to notice your true colors, you will gravitate towards anybody that shows attention to you. And as a result, those are, in my opinion, cringeworthy friendships because they're not real. They're not something that is going to be a long-term situation. But I also have to recognize that not everybody wants friendships like that. Some people are surface level people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you are going through the loss of a friendship, there's a lot of psychological symptoms, including anxiety, worry. You can feel depressed. You can feel worthlessness, hopelessness, helplessness, all of it, because your friendships, especially if you've been friends with people for a long time, they're supposed to promote better health and a longer life. They're supposed to improve your quality of life. And so an absence of friends over time can lead to mental and physical health issues. And that is why you really have to take the time to go through the process, grieve the loss of that friendship, and then rise to the occasion to setting boundaries like we talked about in last week's episode that you don't falter on. So what does this transition look like? How can you kind of work through this process step by step? Number one, some friendships just naturally fade out. This happens by reducing your social interactions with the other person or group of people. It's a great option if you're afraid of confrontation, like myself. Something I'm not good at is confronting people when I know things. I kind of just pull back, deal with it on my own, which is not always a good thing because sometimes it grows and it gets worse and then I explode and I say things that are not great. But this can avoid hurting somebody's feelings. And I know for me, instead of confronting somebody, even if I have like black and white evidence of something somebody said or something somebody did, I would rather just not say anything and be respectful and of my own energy and my own time. I don't ever want to make somebody feel bad. Just because I know somebody is talking ill of me doesn't mean that I have to reciprocate that. I don't have to say things about them. I can just bless, release, and move on. And if you're not, then those relationships could drag on and could end up expending more energy than you have that's available. So sometimes you'll just have that natural group of people that you'll fade out from. Number two, you may have to have the hard conversation where you set up a time to chat in person unless you're concerned about the reaction. When you go into these difficult conversations, you have to have a goal and a plan for your conversation. This is a great opportunity to clear up miscommunications, but have that set, clear goal in mind and start with a statement that directs the conversation. Really lead from the front on what you want to address and how you want the conversation to go. And don't be afraid to talk about how you're feeling. Even if a friendship is ending, it's still somebody that you had a relationship with, and they should genuinely care about how you feel. Even if they don't reciprocate, they should still at least initiate a conversation with you and listen to what you have to say. Number three, if you're like on the fence about what to do, pause, take a break. This gives you a better, fresher perspective on the relationship. It gives you the opportunity to calm down if you're upset. It also gives you the opportunity to miss that person and reevaluate the friendship. And if you come to the terms that, this is not what I want or this is not what I'd like to see in my life, then you can go through the steps of ending the friendship. For some people, this might give you the opportunity to reevaluate and realize that you do love them, you do miss them, you have so many good memories, you just need to have better communication skills and work through the situation you're going through. Number four, you may just need to end it. Sometimes avoiding the chaos is impossible. This occurs with our toxic friendships, and unfortunately, there may be manipulation, emotional abuse. It doesn't require an explanation. You can just say what you need to say, wipe your hands of it, and walk away or hang that phone up and not have to tolerate the response, especially if you know it's going to be toxic and negative. If it's time to go, here's how you can work through scenarios and situations you might face, the feelings, the emotion. Number one, know your feelings are valid when you feel a sense of loss. You can feel guilt when a friendship ends, but there's no reason to beat yourself up. You can feel what you need to feel, take time to grieve, and then move forward and not let those thoughts and feelings linger. Number 2, I highly recommend you review why it went down the way it went down. Don't focus so much on the ending of the friendship. Assess the entire circumstance and situation and the reasons why it had to end. Once you know what went wrong, it's going to help you in your future interactions and friendships and can give you an opportunity for an introspective moment to realize that there are things you may need to do better in your next friendship or your next relationship. Number 3, focus and put your energy into friendships that reciprocate. Reconnect with your friends, and that can help you deepen your other bonds. If you focus on the friends who show up for you, who are there to support you, who aren't gossiping or talking about you, who aren't being fake on social media, this can help you feel more connected. It can help you initiate interactions and conversations and be proactive in the future endeavors that you're going to focus on and follow through on. Number 4, find other interests you enjoy. You know, we always joke when you have a breakup with somebody and they always say, oh, the best way to get over somebody is to get under somebody, which I don't necessarily believe is remotely true, to be quite honest, especially later in life as you're getting older. I think that's the worst thing you can do. Sometimes when you break up or a friendship ends, the best thing you can do is utilize the things you enjoy without needing another person or group. You don't need to go right into another friendship. Just because you're no longer friends with somebody doesn't mean that you need to go, call somebody up and just fill your social calendar, because that's going to make that person feel awful. Focus on the hobbies and things that you enjoy that make you feel good, like reading, exercising. Hell, go find a new hobby. If there's something you've been wanting to do, don't wait for somebody to do it with you. Just go do it yourself. This is something I've really been embracing. I have a core group of like a few very good friends here that I love spending time with. But something I'm also learning is to find balance and to slow down. And this one's not easy for me, but I'll set up my painting studio in my kitchen and I'll do one of my paintings, or I'll read a book, or I'll go take a class by myself. I don't always want to talk to people. And if I've had a particularly busy day, the best thing to end your day is going to a yoga class, because you're just flowing. It's all about the mind, the vibes, meditation, and it leaves you feeling better, and you don't have to have a conversation with somebody and entertain somebody. So one of the best things you can do as you're healing from the ending of a friendship is just find time to be with yourself and enjoy the things you enjoy. And that way you don't feel so pressure either. Because sometimes I feel like in friendships and relationships, we won't do things because other people don't like to do them, or we don't have somebody to do them with, because we're so afraid of doing things by ourselves. And that can be the best thing for you, because inadvertently, when you go to do that thing that you enjoy, especially if you have friends that don't enjoy that same activity, you're going to naturally find other people to vibe with, because they're already going to be there too. Number 5. Seek out new friends when you're ready and it's time. There's no need to replace anybody. You know, like I always say, I always think it's funny, especially when people break up with somebody and they trash that person. And I always find that so odd, because yes, they probably did you dirty if you broke up. But the reality is there was a good portion and period of that time, and that person wasn't always bad. And it's the same with friendships. You don't have to replace anybody. You know, that person was important for your life for a lot of reasons or seasons, and you don't have to try to go out and replace them with somebody, nor should you. Close friendships just naturally, slowly develop over time. And so maybe with your attention not gravitating towards somebody that no longer serves a purpose in your life will give you an opportunity to better get to know the people that are in your life. New phases, new places, new friendships just naturally come with life. And something that I'm experiencing myself right now is this new phase of my life is totally different. And I'm setting boundaries and standards in my new job, and I don't want to reciprocate past experiences that were unfavorable. So I'm really going into this with my guard up, just with a natural stance, because I want to make sure that I'm doing the best job I possibly can. And I know, experiencing, especially after last year and working so many like 16-hour days, I averaged 75 to 80 hours a week, almost every single week. I can't be a good person, good leader, good coach, good trainer if I'm exhausted. And so I don't want to go into this year's endeavors with the same place of lack. And so as I am, grieving the loss of some friendships that I didn't see ending, and embracing some new friends that I've met, I'm just learning to find a healthy balance in my life. And it is hard. There are some definite lows, there are some definite highs, and some gray area in between that I don't necessarily always love, because I am somebody that usually sees life black and white, right or wrong. I'm always somebody that's been proactive and standing up for people and voicing my opinion when necessary. But right now, I'm just kind of sitting back and assessing circumstances and situations and seeing who's there for the likes and comments, who's there just to watch me but doesn't actually interact with anything I do. I just want to focus on people who genuinely support me, and then make sure that I can support them in their endeavors and be there and just be a good friend for them, and not focus on the quantity, more so focus on the quality of my days, the quality of the people I interact with, and just ensure that as I lead from the front, I am doing the best possible job I can do. And honestly, you can't be great in life if you're surrounded by people that pull you down, that make you anxious, that make you question everything you're doing because they're manipulative or they project their own insecurities and issues onto you. And they're quick to always have other people's names in their mouth. Something that, honestly, call this a bonus tip, but if you have a lot of friends, or you have particular friends who are always talking about other people, you should be extremely cautious with them. And that might be your opportunity to see that you may need to phase that person out. There's something that I cannot stand or tolerate, and that is when a group of people gets together and talks about people. I think that's so unfair and so unnecessary, especially in this phase of my life as I am older and I know better, that if you continue to allow those types of conversations and interactions, that says everything you need to know about you and your friends and nothing to do with the person you're talking about. There are 2 quotes on social media that I recently saved and I feel like are really important and really beneficial to this conversation. The first one is, even if you heard a bad story about me, understand this. There was a time I was good to those people, but they won't tell you that. And this is one of the biggest red flags when you are interacting with somebody and they're talking about people. You're not friends with somebody because they're a terrible person, unless you are wild. You're friends with somebody because you love and appreciate them. When you share your home with somebody or share your space, you share your life with that friend, obviously there's a reason you love them and you appreciate them and you want them in your life. So if you find somebody only sharing about the negatives and tearing somebody down, that is a big red flag of who you're interacting with, because if they won't say a positive thing about somebody, that says everything you need to know about that person and not the person they're speaking ill of. Number 2, Cat Williams said, "If you wanted me to speak more highly of you, then perhaps you should have treated me better. You don't get to narrate my story of my experiences with you." And this one's super important, because I think what's hard, especially when friendships are dissolving and ending, is sometimes the narration of the story and trying to control that narration. When you don't treat people well, and we've all been there, I'm not a perfect person. I am extremely flawed. I have the best intentions, but sometimes the worst outcomes. And it's something that I'm really praying and hopeful that I can improve my outcomes this year of interactions. But when you don't treat people well and you get upset with them when they're telling their truth or their story or their interaction with you, you need to be mindful of something. Your actions have consequences, and there are repercussions for your actions. And that may be somebody being honest and telling the truth about their interactions with you. And that may make you uncomfortable, but that's your opportunity to grow and to learn and to be a better person. But you can't control somebody else's narration of their experiences with you. And I know that can be extremely uncomfortable, especially when people are talking about you and you know it's not true or it's not valid. Sometimes you just got to let people do their thing because, like I said, people that tend to have their other people's names in their mouth is not saying anything about you. It's just words. It's saying everything you need to know about that person. And at the end of the day, would you really want that person in your life anyways, just because you're going to be included in something? I've learned the hard way, you really don't. And lastly, let's have a human moment and realize something, because I've realized this myself as well. We are so hyper-focused on our goals, our intentions, our needs, that the narration we're telling ourselves in our head may not be the accurate description of what's occurring in a friendship or a relationship. And sometimes if you're like me and you have anxiety, it's so fun. We literally will create every worst case possible scenario and stress ourselves out over something that literally may not even exist. It's just a falsified narrative we've created in our head. Give people that you love grace. If it's somebody, especially if you've had a deep connection with, you've known for a long time, you know their story, which is always helpful, give them the opportunity to explain themselves, to have a conversation, because if that's one of your genuine friends, you should love them and you should be understanding that people are going to make mistakes. We're all going to have times when we say things or do things. We're human beings who are flawed in nature. The importance of today's conversation is when you've had reciprocal situations that are unfavorable, are reciprocating patterns that you notice that are things that you truly just don't want to expose yourself. That is when you need to have a conversation or work through the process to sever ties. But grieving friendships is not easy, and grief in general is a roller coaster. There are set plans in terms of the levels and the experiences that you have when you're grieving a friendship, but no one reminds you or tells you that just because you went through the denial phase doesn't mean that denial is going to come back around. It will. It's crazy as you're growing and healing and going through these processes of what it can bring up, what emotions that can be evoked, and that you may have to go through those levels more than once before you truly feel healed. But it's just something I always tell people is to lead with grace and kindness, because as you're so quick to judge that person, you have no idea what they're going through. And because of that, you may not realize that a circumstance, a situation, a milestone that could be genuinely happy could trigger somebody that has had a different experience than you, and it may evoke emotions that you may not understand. And as a result, that person may pull back. That person may, decrease their communication because they're trying to process things. Take the time to have the conversation if you love and appreciate somebody first before you judge them. That will enable you to determine the kind of friendships that you want to keep, the kind that you need to sever, and those that need to just bless, release, and grieve. You don't have to have some outlandish presentation or experience. You may just need to have a conversation with yourself, work through it yourself, and then make sure that when you go into that next interaction, it's not necessarily that you have your guard up, but you're just mindful of your actions and your interactions. So if you're somebody that's going through it, just know that I feel you. I'm going through it myself right now. It's not easy, but it doesn't always necessarily revolve around us. And sometimes it's just the phase of life that we're in. And it's okay to be happy for that person from a distance, still love and appreciate them, but it just might not be the time or the place for you to be in that season of life together. All right, y'all, please don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast. Leave that 5-star review. Leave that comment so I can shout you out and enter you into my monthly giveaway. And we'll do this again next Tuesday. So stay tuned, y'all, and we will chat soon.